The landscape of popular music is a vast and unforgiving ocean, where thousands of melodies emerge from the depths only to be swallowed by the relentless tide of shifting trends and short attention spans. Every year, countless ambitious musicians enter recording studios with dreams of immortality, pouring their souls into rhythms and lyrics that they hope will capture the global imagination. For the vast majority, the journey ends in the quiet corners of local venues or forgotten digital playlists, known only to a dedicated few. Yet every so often a strange and magnificent phenomenon occurs in this cultural wilderness. An artist or a group of relative unknowns catches lightning in a bottle, creating a singular piece of audio magic that defies the odds, shatters the charts, and embeds itself permanently into the collective consciousness of humanity. These are the songs that possess an almost supernatural ability to stop time, tracks so potent and distinct that you can instantly identify them from the very first strike of a chord, the opening rumble of a bass line, or a unique vocal ad-lib. They become the background soundtrack to our summers, the anthems of our youth, and the unavoidable melodies echoing through supermarkets, radio stations, and midnight dance floors across the globe. We call them one-hit wonders, a term that carries a bit of irony, but actually represents one of the most fascinating triumphs in modern entertainment history. To achieve mainstream success even once is a feat of monumental proportions, requiring a perfect alignment of talent, timing, luck, and cultural synergy. While many music critics or casual observers might view these artists through a lens of fleeting fame, the reality is that we are immensely blessed to have this rich tapestry of singular masterpieces enriching our lives. These tracks represent a pure distillation of a specific moment in time, capturing an era's energy so perfectly that they outlive the very careers of the people who created them. It is a profound mystery of creative industries why some incredibly talented musicians manage to conquer the world for exactly 3 minutes and 40 seconds, only to vanish back into the shadows from which they emerged. This baffling pattern leaves us with a treasure trove of nostalgic gems and a fascinating historical puzzle to solve. The melodies remain completely indelible, yet the names printed on the record sleeve slowly fade from public memory, turning a massive global hit into a grand trivia game played by generations of music lovers. It raises a compelling question about our relationship with fame and memory, and how well we truly know the architects behind the sounds that defined our personal histories. As we prepare to dive deep into the fascinating stories, forgotten faces, and incredible secrets behind these massive standalone triumphs, it is worth pausing to consider your own musical intuition. If you find yourself captivated by these deep dives into cultural history and want to ensure you never miss our detailed investigations into the world's most intriguing stories, please consider taking a moment to subscribe to the channel and turning on notifications so you can journey along with us through every chapter. The world of music is filled with these enigmatic figures who arrived, conquered, and departed, leaving behind footprints that time simply cannot wash away. To truly appreciate the scale of this phenomenon, one must look past the glittering surface of standard multi-platinum superstardom and look closely at the fragile nature of artistic momentum. For every legendary group that sustains a decades-long career full of stadium tours and endless hit records, there are dozens of brilliant creators who burned so bright and so fast that they left the public completely blinded, unable to see anything else they would ever produce. This unique dynamic creates a very special bond between the listener and the song because the track becomes completely detached from a broader discography and exists as a pure, standalone monument of pop culture. When you hear the first note of a legendary one-hit wonder, your mind does not wander to a recent album or a modern controversial headline about the singer. Instead, it transports you directly back to the exact year, the specific feeling, and the vivid atmosphere of the era when that song ruled the airwaves. This creates an unparalleled level of nostalgia, making these tracks some of the most powerful emotional time machines in existence. But this raises an incredible challenge for even the most devoted audiophiles and trivia enthusiasts who pride themselves on their deep knowledge of musical history. We all know the words, we all know the rhythm, and we can all sing along perfectly when the chorus hits, but when the music stops and the lights come up, can you actually name the minds behind the magic? Can you separate the song from the collective haze of pop memory and correctly identify the specific singer or band who defied the odds to give us that one unforgettable moment? It is a much harder task than it seems at first glance because the sheer weight of the song's popularity often completely overshadowed the human beings performing it. The melody became a giant, while the artists remained normal mortals, doomed to walk among us while their voices echoed in millions of homes simultaneously. This striking contrast between total sonic familiarity and complete personal anonymity is what makes the study of one-hit wonders so endlessly gripping and filled with hidden human drama. As we begin our journey into this sonic labyrinth, we invite you to test your own memory, to look beyond the massive choruses you know by heart, and to see if you can accurately match the legendary tracks to the artists who sacrificed everything to create them, leading us directly into the heart of a musical mystery that spans decades of unforgettable sounds. To fully understand the dizzying height of this phenomenon, we must plunge into the turbulent waters of the late 20th century, an era when the music industry operated as a high-stakes lottery where a single night could transform an ordinary person into an international icon. The mechanism of the one-hit wonder is fueled by intense tension, a fierce struggle between creative vision and the brutal realities of commercial radio and television programming. Imagine stepping into a recording studio with a handful of instruments and a raw, untested concept, completely unaware that the sequence of notes you are tracking will soon be broadcast across continents, translated into dozens of languages, and memorized by hundreds of millions of people who will never know your face. This was the precise reality for a series of eccentric visionaries and accidental pop stars who managed to capture the cultural zeitgeist perfectly, if only for a brief and fleeting moment. The sheer tension of this sudden elevation cannot be understated, as the machinery of global entertainment immediately wraps itself around a rising song, pushing it through every speaker on the planet until it becomes an inescapable cultural force. Think of the electronic pulsations that define the early days of synthetic pop, where a completely unique hook could bypass traditional musical barriers and strike a chord with listeners from Tokyo to London. The mystery deepens when we examine how these tracks were built, often using unconventional instruments, strange vocal inflections, or experimental production techniques that mainstream artists would have deemed far too risky. These risks paid off in spectacular fashion, creating sonic signatures so distinct that they served as immediate psychological triggers for an entire generation. Yet behind the scenes, a quiet panic often began to take hold as the creators realized the monstrous scale of the success they had unleashed. When a single song becomes a global monument, it casts a massive, inescapable shadow over everything else the artist attempts to create. Every subsequent lyric written, every melody composed, and every performance given is instantly weighed against the impossible standard of that one perfect breakthrough. The tension shifts from a struggle for recognition to a desperate race to prove that they are not merely a fluke of history, a battle against a public that has already decided it only wants to hear that one specific chorus over and over again. This creates a fascinating and deeply moving human drama at the heart of pop music history, where artists find themselves trapped within their own success, celebrated by millions for a tiny fraction of their creative output, while their broader artistic identities are completely erased from the narrative. As radio stations locked these tracks into permanent heavy rotation, the songs themselves took on a life completely independent of their makers, floating through the global cultural ether as pure expressions of specific historical moments. Consider the unexpected cross-cultural explosions where a regional folk rhythm or a localized underground dance groove was suddenly polished for a mass audience, triggering a global craze that swept across schoolyards, sports stadiums, and wedding receptions with the speed of wildfire. The listeners became deeply possessive of these melodies, weaving them into the fabric of their own personal milestones like first cars, summer romances, and graduation nights, entirely separated from the human beings who actually spent sleepless nights in distant studios trying to get the vocal tracking just right. This disconnect is where the ultimate trivia challenge is born, because while the collective memory of the public preserves the sonic architecture of the hit with absolute, flawless clarity, it systematically discards the identities of the architects themselves. We can all vividly recall the exact cadence of the verse, the sudden explosion of the brass section, or the whimsical whistle that introduced the track. But the names of the individuals who stood before the microphone remain shrouded in a dense fog of historical neglect. This creates an extraordinary paradox where a piece of art can be universally recognized by billions of individuals simultaneously, yet the artist remains completely anonymous, capable of walking down a busy metropolis street without a single head turning in recognition. This tension between total sonic saturation and absolute personal obscurity defines the golden age of the standalone hit, serving as a powerful reminder of how capricious and unpredictable public affection truly is. The music industry actively looked for these lightning strikes, deploying talent scouts and executives across the globe to find the next viral sensation long before the internet existed to facilitate the process, relying instead on word of mouth. Pirate radio stations, and the sheer gut instinct of club disc jockeys. When a track finally connected with the public, the momentum was completely unstoppable, forcing pressing plants to work 24 hours a day just to meet the insatiable demand for vinyl records and cassette tapes that consumers scrambled to purchase. This massive commercial wave created an environment where a single song could generate millions of dollars in a matter of weeks, altering the financial realities of its creators overnight and thrusting them into a surreal world of international press tours, television appearances, and screaming audiences who only knew them for a single 3-minute performance. The internal pressure within these bands must have been immense, as long-standing creative partnerships were strained to the breaking point under the weight of sudden, intense scrutiny and the agonizing knowledge that their window of global attention was rapidly slamming shut. They were forced to perform their singular masterpiece thousands of times on stages across the world, watched by crowds who would politely tolerate the new material only to erupt into absolute pandemonium the moment the familiar opening notes of the big hit were finally played. This cycle of performance and reception highlights the complex relationship between an artist and their most famous creation, a bond that can easily warp from a source of immense pride into a heavy gilded cage that limits all future growth. As we analyze this fascinating chapter of cultural history, the mystery only intensifies, leaving us to wonder how many of these legendary tracks you can truly connect to their rightful creators as the stakes of our musical journey continue to rise. To fully appreciate the enduring legacy of these musical anomalies, we must pull back the final curtain and examine the profound human journeys behind the voices that defined our cultural history. The individuals who crafted these timeless masterworks were not mere caricatures destined for trivia books. They were dedicated musicians, dreamers, and poets whose lives were irrevocably altered by a singular brush with global immortality. When we look closely at their trajectories, we discover stories of immense resilience, creative rebirth, and a deep philosophical acceptance of their unique place in the universe. For many of these artists, the sudden evaporation of mainstream fame was not the tragic end of a career, but rather a liberating release from the crushing gears of a corporate entertainment industry that demanded endless replication of an unrepeatable miracle. Released from the pressure of chasing another chart-topping sensation, many vanished back into the vibrant underground scenes from which they came, continuing to write, perform, and evolve as pure creators far away from the blinding glare of the paparazzi. They became respected producers, session musicians for other legendary acts, or mentors to the next generation of talent, carrying the quiet dignity of knowing they had accomplished what millions of aspiring artists only dream of doing. They had touched the top of the mountain, left a permanent mark on the world, and walked away with their integrity intact. Think of the incredible journeys of electronic pioneers who, after scoring a massive global hit with a weird synthesizer track, used their royalties to build independent studios, quietly shaping the sound of modern ambient house and techno music from the shadows. Consider the folk singers whose singular whimsical melodies became international anthems, who then happily returned to intimate acoustic clubs. Content to sing their stories to small audiences who truly appreciated the depth of their craftsmanship beyond a catchy chorus. These artists understand that a single hit song is a magnificent gift, a golden ticket that ensures their voice will echo through time long after they are gone, played at milestone celebrations, embedded in cinematic masterpieces, and passed down from parents to children as a sacred piece of nostalgic heritage. The true significance of the one-hit wonder lies in this beautiful democratic reality of art. It proves that genius does not require a lifetime of corporate-backed superstardom to validate its existence. A creator needs only one perfect moment, one alignment of melody and emotion to permanently alter the cultural landscape of the earth. When we look back at the grand tapestry of popular culture, these standalone triumphs shine like brilliant supernovae, illuminating specific eras with a vividness that more sustained careers often fail to capture. They remind us of the beautiful unpredictability of human creativity and the mysterious ways in which listeners connect with sound. The music itself becomes a shared monument, a cross-generational bridge where a teenager today can feel the exact same rush of adrenaline and joy upon hearing that opening chord as a listener did sitting in a car 40 years ago. This is the ultimate magic of the songs we have explored. They are completely untethered from the constraints of time, fashion, and the shifting fortunes of the music business. They exist as pure joy, pure nostalgia, and pure artistic triumph. So, as the final notes of our journey begin to fade, and the names of these elusive creators finally click into place alongside the melodies you have known by heart for your entire life, we can appreciate the full scope of this fascinating phenomenon. The next time you are driving down a highway, browsing through a digital playlist, or standing on a crowded dance floor, and that unmistakable, brilliant first note pierces through the air, you will not just hear a catchy rhythm from a forgotten year. You will recognize it for what it truly is, a monumental achievement of human expression, a brilliant lightning strike captured in a bottle by an artist who, for one glorious moment, held the entire world in the palm of their hand and left us an inheritance